Welcome back everyone, and get ready because today we're diving into one of the most astonishing, mind-bending, and conversation-stopping stories in the entire world of rare coins, a story that pulls you straight into a world where a tiny piece of metal minted over 4 decades ago suddenly skyrockets into a realm of unimaginable luxury, jaw-dropping value, and historical significance. So settle in as we explore the unbelievable tale of the 1980p quarter-dollar coin that collectors claim could command a staggering price tag of $87 million purely due to its extraordinary combination of errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and the incredibly rare circumstances surrounding its creation. And as we welcome you into this deep dive on our channel, we're excited to unravel every detail, every possibility, every error type, and every mysterious quirk that has transformed a simple 25-cent coin into something that coin enthusiasts and treasure hunters worldwide whisper about with awe, curiosity, and determination. Because whether you're a casual viewer, a long-time collector, or someone who simply loves astonishing stories, today's journey into the world of the 1980p quarter will grip your imagination from the very first second as we explore how this unassuming coin minted at the Philadelphia Mint, a mint that produced hundreds of millions of quarters that year, could somehow include a handful of pieces so rare, so bizarrely flawed, and so uniquely produced that they became legendary, with experts speculating that only one or two examples contain the lethal combination of minting errors that pushed value estimates to a jaw-dropping $87 million. And as we get into it, imagine holding a coin that the average person would overlook, a coin that millions of people spent without ever thinking twice, a coin that fell into pockets, coin jars, vending machines, and cash drawers all across America, but secretly one that hides an array of minting mistakes so significant that each imperfection becomes a piece of numismatic history woven into an object worth more than the most expensive luxury homes, cars, or jewelry. So let's break down what exactly makes this particular 1980p quarter so valuable and how collectors assess its worth based on several categories of errors like off-center strikes, misaligned dies, double dies, planchet defects, broad strikes, clip planchets, reeded edge anomalies, and the ultra-rare transitional or experimental planchet possibilities that some claim may have occurred when the mint shifted between metal stock suppliers, with this unique 1980 example allegedly exhibiting a bizarre mixture of features so rare that no other known coin of the same date has matched it, creating a perfect storm of value, mystique, and unbelievable collector demand. And one of the most discussed errors believed to be present in this mythical $87 million specimen is the dramatic double die obverse, a type of error where the design elements, especially Washington's profile, Liberty lettering, and the motto, appear doubled because of a mistake during the hubbing process when the master die transferred its design twice but in a slightly misaligned fashion, resulting in thickened lines, ghosted images, doubled letters, and a shadow-like appearance that immediately attracts the attention of experienced collectors because double dies become legendary, especially in quarters where significant doubled dies are extremely scarce, and the 1980p is not typically known for strong double die varieties, so finding a powerful, dramatic, unmistakable double die obverse would alone make the coin valuable. But the mythical $87 million example is described as having an even more astonishing combination of doubling and misalignment, where the doubling intertwines with a partial off-center strike, meaning the coin was struck outside the normal alignment between the die and the planchet, giving the design a shifting, almost distorted look that wraps around the rim in a bizarre and captivating way. And then add reports of additional dramatic die deterioration lines, raised cracks, and strange die gouges that suggest the die used was in extremely poor condition, something that rarely occurs with Philadelphia Mint quarters of that era because the mint inspected dies regularly, meaning a coin struck with such excessive wear would already be rare. But when you combine it with striking errors, planchet issues, and other unusual characteristics, the rarity amplifies exponentially, creating a once-in-a-generation type collectible. And imagine collectors analyzing this coin further and discovering what appears to be a broad strike error in combination with a clip planchet, meaning the coin might have been struck without the collar that shapes the reeded edge, while the planchet itself may have been cut improperly, leaving a full curved crescent-shaped clip, a type of mint error that is already valuable, but when blended with off-centering, doubling, and die deterioration, it becomes astronomically rare. And then there's the enduring rumor about the possibility of an incorrect planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the intended copper-nickel-clad quarter blank, the coin may have been accidentally struck on a leftover experimental planchet or foreign coin blank, something that occasionally happened in the mint's history when old or test stock mixed with current production materials. And if that were true, then this 1980p quarter could possess a slightly different weight, metal composition, or edge appearance that would make it a minting anomaly of historic proportions, the kind of error that instantly propels a coin from typical value ranges into the realm of priceless, museum-grade artifacts, and some collectors even whisper that this coin might have a mule error component, meaning the obverse and reverse dies did not belong together, a mistake that has created some of the most famous and valuable coins in American history. And although no confirmed 1980p quarter mules exist, the whispers persist because the coin described in the $87 million rumor exhibits design elements that don't perfectly match any known die variety, hinting at the possibility of an unrecorded die pairing mistake that slipped through quality control before being struck, released, circulated briefly, and eventually discovered by someone who had no idea they were holding something worth more than entire corporations. And as the legend of this coin grew, people began analyzing micro-details like unusual texture variations on the fields of the coin, reverse anomalies among the eagle's feathers, and microscopic differences in rim thickness that suggest a multi-layer mix of errors impossible for normal production, making the coin a masterpiece of minting chaos that transformed into pure collector gold. And the idea that a single quarter could hold so many mistakes at once seems unbelievable, but that's exactly what makes numismatics exciting, because sometimes a coin escapes the mint with a series of compounding errors that statistically should never occur together, and when they do, they become the holy grail of collecting, and that's precisely what fuels the story of the $87 million 1980p quarter. The idea that one ordinary-looking coin is actually a perfect storm of minting disasters layered onto one physical object that somehow survived unnoticed long enough to reach circulation before ending up in the hands of someone who recognized its astonishing worth. And think about the emotional impact of such a discovery, holding something worth more money than generations could spend, all from a moment of curiosity and attention to detail. And as collectors analyze such a coin, they examine strike quality, metal flow patterns, die alignment, rim formation, edge details, and surface texture, all of which contribute to a scientific approach in determining the authenticity of minting errors and evaluating rarity. And the mythical $87 million example reportedly shows a level of complexity beyond typical errors, almost as if several mishaps occurred in sequence during its production. And that's why discussions about it circulate in coin communities, inspiring people to check their pocket change, inspect their old coin jars, and study coins with magnifying glasses, hoping to find something so rare that it changes their life forever. And as we explore the motivations of collectors who chase such legendary coins, we see how rarity, condition, demand, and historical intrigue combine to create astronomical value, because when only one example of a complex error exists, collectors don't just want it, they will compete fiercely for it, driving prices into the realm of luxury auctions, private sales, and elite acquisitions that bring global attention. And that's why the story of the 1980p quarter valued at $87 million has captured imaginations, not because every 1980 quarter is valuable, but because the possibility of one extraordinary piece existing creates a wave of excitement, curiosity, and hope. And as you listen to this story today, imagine yourself finding such a coin. Imagine discovering a mistake from history so rare that the entire numismatic world suddenly pays attention. Imagine holding in your hand a piece of metal that turns into generational wealth simply because of errors made in a split second during its creation over 40 years ago. And that's why stories like this keep the thrill of coin collecting alive, pushing people to keep learning, keep searching. Next. Today we're exploring one of the most surprising and fascinating discoveries ever talked about in the numismatic community, the legendary 1984p quarter dollar that has been rumored to command an astonishing value of $34 million because of its extraordinary combination of rare errors, minting anomalies, die imperfections, metal inconsistencies, production mysteries, striking irregularities, and countless micro-details that collectors believe make it not just a coin but a once-in-a-generation phenomenon. And as we unravel this story, you'll see why enthusiasts, experts, historians, and collectors are all captivated by how a simple 25-cent piece could become one of the most valuable modern coins ever discussed. So imagine holding a common-looking 1984 Philadelphia minted quarter only to discover that beneath its ordinary appearance lies a sequence of minting mistakes so unusual, so layered, so technically improbable, and so visually striking that it transforms the coin into a high-value marvel. And as we go deeper into the story of these mistakes, you'll understand how each flaw adds to its legendary status, starting with the most talked-about feature, the double-struck obverse impression that appears faintly around Washington's profile, a rare minting error where the coin shifts slightly between strikes, leaving a ghost-like second outline of the portrait. creating a mesmerizing doubling that collectors chase relentlessly because it demonstrates a clear malfunction in the striking process, and in the case of the 1984 P-quarter, this doubling is said to align in such a perfectly imperfect way that the face, nose, forehead, and part of the hair create an optical effect resembling a shadowed second bust, something incredibly hard to replicate and something that immediately takes the coin out of normal circulation status into the realm of extraordinary rarity. And right next to this doubling, rumor has it that the date shows signs of mechanical doubling too, where the 1984 is slightly split at the base, giving experts reason to believe that the die used to strike this legendary coin was loose, misaligned, worn down, or possibly even damaged, and the presence of such intricate doubling on both the portrait and numeric date intensifies the belief that the coin was born from a truly chaotic minting moment, which is exactly the kind of anomaly collectors adore. But the magic doesn't stop there, because the mint mark P is also described as having a slight tilt with an uneven punch depth, suggesting a hand-punched mint mark misalignment from a die that might have undergone modification or repolishing. And although small, errors in mint mark placement can drastically increase desirability, especially when combined with other serious mistakes. And next comes one of the most fascinating features: the reverse side of the coin allegedly shows a partial blockage, a rare error where one side of the coin receives an incorrect mirrored impression, because another coin became stuck between dies, leaving behind warped, flattened, or ghost-like details. And for this 1984 P-quarter, enthusiasts claim that part of the eagle's right wing and tail feathers appear warped, smoothed, or lightly mirrored in unexpected directions, giving the reverse a surreal appearance as if the feathers were melting or folding. And this bizarre distortion adds an almost artistic imperfection that makes the coin visually unforgettable. And moving deeper into the analysis, many believe that the planchet itself, the blank metal disc that becomes the coin, was flawed before striking, potentially containing incomplete alloy mixing, microscopic cracks, or even impurities. And when a planchet is imperfect, it interacts with the striking process in unpredictable ways, creating subtle ripples, raised metal waves, or texture inconsistencies across the surface. And collectors claim that on this legendary 1984 P-quarter, under magnification, the fields show tiny metal flow lines and uneven texturing that hint at an improperly prepared planchet, a detail that, when paired with striking errors, skyrockets the coin's uniqueness. And speaking of striking problems, one of the most talked about features of this coin is the off-center strike anomaly, where the design is said to be just slightly shifted toward one edge. Not enough to make it an obvious off-center coin, but enough to create uneven spacing between the rim and design elements, giving the entire coin a subtle but noticeable imbalance. And when this kind of strike happens with a still visible full date, full portrait, and fully readable reverse details, it becomes even more desirable, because imperfectly perfect errors are far rarer than completely misstruck coins. And adding to the mystery is the rumored die crack near the letter L in Liberty, stretching like a thin raised line toward the rim, an error created when a die begins to fracture and transfers that fracture pattern onto struck coins. And die cracks are beloved in the numismatic world because they provide a fingerprint from the minting machinery itself, almost like capturing the exact moment a minting tool began to fail. And in the case of this coin, multiple tiny die cracks across both sides supposedly create a web-like pattern that suggests the die was near catastrophic failure when this piece was struck, which only fuels the excitement of collectors who believe they're witnessing the final breath of a damaged die. But what makes all of these mistakes so extraordinary is that they appear to stack together, not just one or two errors but dozens of small and large anomalies blending into a single coin, creating a breathtaking collection of mistakes that no mint would ever intend or expect. And the combination of doubling, misalignment, blockage effects, die cracks, planchet inconsistencies, metal flow abnormalities, rim distortion, mint mark issues, and off-center striking makes the coin feel like a once-in-a-lifetime accident, the kind of piece that could not realistically be produced by anything other than a perfect storm of minting malfunctions. And these layered flaws are exactly what fuel the rumor of its $34 million valuation, because while any individual error might make a coin worth hundreds or even thousands, a cluster of rare and dramatic errors working together elevates the piece from interesting to legendary, and collectors are always willing to pay astronomical prices for coins that tell a story, especially one involving a chaotic minting sequence from a time when the U.S. Mint was modernizing machinery and adjusting production processes, creating occasional unpredictable results. And beyond the physical errors, the coin also carries historical significance, being minted in an era of rapid technological transition. And coins from the early 1980s often show hints of experimentation, shifting die materials, and adjustments in alloy treatments, so the possibility that this coin reflects a transitional minting moment adds even more intrigue, and collectors love to attach meaning, narrative, and technical backstory to pieces like this, fueling demand, excitement, and myth-building around their rarity. But even beyond the errors, there's a psychological component to its rumored value. The idea that an ordinary-looking 1984 P quarter could secretly be a multimillion-dollar treasure taps into the universal dream of discovering wealth in everyday life, and this emotional appeal fuels viral discussions, collector speculation, bidding wars, and the spiraling high-value rumors that help transform coins into cultural legends. And when you combine technical rarity, striking anomalies, mysterious production conditions, layered errors, historical context, collector obsession, and emotional fascination, you get a coin capable of commanding mythical valuations. And whether the coin truly sells for $34 million or simply becomes the subject of intense speculation, its fame continues to spread because people love the idea that hidden treasures exist all around them. And so as we explore all these elements, the errors, the stories, the possibilities, you can begin to understand why this simple quarter has become so valuable to collectors worldwide. And with that said, if you enjoyed learning about this extraordinary piece and want more deep dives into rare coins, mysterious mint errors, and surprising numismatic stories, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible discoveries coming soon. Last, 1984 quarter-dollar coin can skyrocket to an unbelievable value of $18 million because of the unusual combination of errors, mistakes, minting oddities, and mysterious circumstances that turned an everyday piece of pocket change into one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. And as we explore this unbelievable rise in value, we'll take you on a deep and engaging journey through the intricate world of mint blunders, hidden variations, production anomalies, unexpected metal compositions, striking issues, and all the unusual possibilities that make a coin like the 1984 quarter far more valuable than anyone could ever expect. So imagine holding a simple quarter in your hand, a coin so common that millions of people spend it on vending machines, parking meters, and everyday purchases without a second thought. Yet hidden among those millions is a version of the 1984 quarter that collectors are willing to pay life-changing money for, and today we're going to unpack everything that goes into that enormous price tag, starting from the origin of its value and the minting conditions of the early 1980s, a time when the U.S. Mint was transitioning through various equipment changes, die replacements, and quality control procedures that often produced unintentional variations. And because of this transitional era combined with the heavy usage of quarters in circulation, the 1984 quarter became prone to certain unique mistakes that rarely happened in other years, mistakes that have since become the heart of its value and that push collectors into fierce competition whenever one of these rare pieces appears on the market. And one of the most widely discussed errors linked to the 1984 quarter is the dramatic double die strike, a mistake that happens when the coin's design is impressed twice but slightly misaligned, creating a shadowed effect on the lettering, numbers, or profile of George Washington. And while double die pennies and nickels are well known among collectors, a perfectly preserved double-die quarter from 1984 is extraordinarily rare, mainly because quarters experience heavier circulation and wear out faster, making it uncommon to find one with the doubling crisp enough to confirm the error. And in certain cases this doubling on the 1984 quarter extends across not only the date but also the word liberty, the phrase "In God We Trust," and even the details across Washington's neckline. And when those elements combine in a single coin, they create a type of rarity that collectors dream of, especially because only a handful have ever been authenticated at the highest grading levels. And the rarity increases when we account for the fact that the mint in the 1980s was using older machinery that sometimes produced misaligned dies, leading to off-center strikes that shift the entire design to one side, leaving a crescent-shaped blank space on the opposite edge of the coin. And while slight off-center errors are fairly common, dramatic off-center strikes of over 50% while still showing the full date are exceptionally valuable, and a few verified 1984 quarters have this dramatic mistake, making them extremely desirable because they combine both an off-center strike and other smaller errors like die cracks, metal flow lines, or rim anomalies. And speaking of die cracks, another reason the 1984 quarter has attracted so much attention is the existence of severe die breaks that produce raised lines or blobs on parts of the design, especially around Washington's head, the mint mark area, and the eagle on the reverse. and some examples feature a spectacular die break, often referred to by collectors as a cut error, where a broken portion of the die leaves a raised, unstruck blob on the rim of the coin, dramatically altering the shape and giving it a unique appearance that instantly sets it apart from normal issues. And because cut errors usually appear at the very end of a die's life, they often exist in extremely low numbers, since the die would be replaced quickly once the defect was discovered. And when such a cut error appears on a year like 1984, which already has a reputation for its unusual variations, the value increases dramatically, adding even more fuel to the belief that the finest examples are worth millions. And another major factor pushing the value into the stratosphere is a mysterious rumor surrounding a batch of experimental planchets that may have been used during the 1984 production cycle, with some collectors believing that a very small number of quarters were mistakenly struck on non-standard metal compositions such as transitional copper-nickel blends or leftover blanks intended for foreign coins. And because the U.S. Mint occasionally produced foreign currency blanks during the 1980s, the possibility of a mix-up adds intrigue and enormous speculative value, especially when a coin is found to weigh slightly more or less than the standard 5.67 grams, and when weight variations combine with striking errors, missing clad layers, or unusual coloration, collectors begin to see these coins not just as mint mistakes but as rare artifacts from an era of manufacturing uncertainty, and that sense of mystery helps push the story, and the value, even higher, encouraging more people to examine every detail of the 1984 quarter in hopes of discovering a life-changing treasure. And speaking of missing clad layers, this error alone can exponentially increase the price, because a missing clad layer exposes the inner copper core, giving the coin a half-silver, half-copper appearance that immediately stands out in circulation. And because this type of error can occur on either the obverse or the reverse, or in extremely rare cases both sides, the combinations create dozens of possible variations, each with its own level of rarity. And when a 1984 quarter with a missing clad layer is found in high grade with sharp details and minimal scratching, the price can surge to 6 or even 7 figures, especially when paired with doubling, off-center strikes or die cracks. And all of these factors create the perfect storm of rarity and collector obsession. And when you combine that obsession with demand, auction competition, private bidding wars, and the growing market for rare coins, the price tag for the finest known 1984 era quarters has reached levels no one could have predicted, with some enthusiasts estimating that one particular example with an unusual combination of errors would be worth around $18 million if it ever went to auction. And the legend of that coin has fueled even more interest, inspiring treasure hunters, collectors, investors, and everyday people to search through their pocket change hoping to uncover the next big discovery. And as we continue exploring the possible mistakes that make the 1984 quarter valuable, we can't ignore the subtle die polishing errors that leave faint lines across the surface, lines that look like scratches but are actually marks left when the mint attempted to restore worn dies by polishing them. And on some 1984 quarters, these polishing marks removed or distorted design features such as parts of the eagle's feathers or Washington's hair details, creating unusual varieties that specialists try to categorize. And when a polished die error appears alongside other mistakes like machine doubling or metal impurities, the coin becomes a multi-error specimen, significantly increasing its worth. And speaking of metal impurities, another possible factor adding to the value is the presence of microscopic bubbles or streaks caused by improper mixing or rolling of the metal sheets from which the blanks were punched. And when these impurities interact with pressure during striking, they can cause raised or recessed patterns that are completely unique to each coin, giving them a one-of-a-kind fingerprint that appeals to collectors seeking unusual specimens. And some 1984 quarters have been found with streaky surfaces resembling wood grain, a phenomenon known as wood grain toning, which occurs when copper and nickel layers separate unevenly. And because this phenomenon is rare in quarters, any instance from 1984 gains significant attention, especially when the coin is in uncirculated condition. And all of these factors, from dramatic errors to subtle imperfections, contribute to the layers of value that build up around the 1984 quarter, creating a perfect blend of rarity, mystery, speculation, and collector passion that can push certain specimens to unbelievable prices like the widely discussed figure of $18 million. And while some might question how a quarter can ever be worth that much, collectors understand that value in numismatics is not only about the metal inside the coin but the story it tells, the mistakes it carries, the rarity it represents, and the competition it creates in the market. And the story of the 1984 quarter is one of the most fascinating examples of how a common object can become a priceless treasure when it carries the right combination of historical context, minting errors, and collector demand. and as more people discover the world of rare coins, the legend of the 1984 quarter continues to grow, inspiring countless collectors to examine their old jars of change, check inherited collections, explore flea markets and stay alert for that magical coin hiding in plain sight. And as always,